be Donald Trump because he won. That's how real life works. And on top of all of that, according to Politico, and you got that guy, billionaire progressive liberals like George Soros. Well, they're now meeting with key congressional Democrats. Why? They want a plan to come up with and spend a lot of money and try and stop the mandate that you gave Donald Trump and, quote, take back power. Now, think about it. If you're my age, would this have been acceptable behavior when you were growing up or when your parents were growing up or your grandparents were growing up? Well, of course not. My grandparents, they came to this country from Ireland. They had 20 bucks in their pocket. They maybe knew one person over here and maybe had a little corner in the basement to sleep in every night. There were no therapy dogs available to them. They had to go to work 16 hours a day. And literally, they had to cope with institutional racism. Irish Catholic need not apply at the time. There was no coddling. There was no comforting from my father. He grew up poor in Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn. My mother, who grew up in the South Bronx, no coddling for them, no therapy dogs for them. But they did bust their humps to afford a tiny Cape Cod house on a 50 by 100 lot, and they didn't whine. They didn't complain. They worked hard for all that they had. They didn't take vacations. They sacrificed for their kids. I wasn't traumatized because I delivered papers at 8, and I was washing dishes by hand in a restaurant every Friday and Saturday night and Sunday when I was 12, and cooking when I was 13, and bussing tables at 14 and 15, and waiting tables at 16, and tending bar at 17. I love those jobs. I always had money in my pocket. There was no therapy session for me when I was working, no hot cocoa from a teacher, or when I was working construction, carrying lumber for framing or lugging shingles or painting or hanging paper or laying tile. I can't relate to this absurd behavior, and I doubt you can either. This is not what America's all about. This is now collective insanity, and it's really all time for these little pampered, spoiled brats to get over themselves. The election has been won, and Donald Trump will be your next president. Joining us now is President-elect Donald Trump's senior advisor, Kellyanne Conway. We've been friends for over 20 years. Did I ever send you a therapy dog? Did I ever send you hot cocoa? Did I ever give you a crying room because you lost? Did we ever protest together? I don't think so.
Maybe a cigar and a cognac here and there, which is more our style. And certainly not to degrade the office of the presidency or cry crocodile tears into that cognac about who had won the election. I mean, look, I was raised the way you were raised, very humble beginnings, but most importantly, we were always raised to respect the office of the presidency and its current occupant and the flag. And that's it, and all that that represents. And, you know, Sean, when I listen to the protesters, when I listen to the professional politicians whine and cry over Donald Trump's election, I haven't heard anything new. All of their grievances and complaints are so pre-election. We heard all of this. We heard it constantly from the elites. We heard it from the mainstream media. We heard it from many of the paid protesters before the election, and yet it was rejected. Donald Trump got he got 60 million, 65 million votes. He got over 42 million, about 30 million of women voted for him. He got a larger percentage of the African-American vote, larger percentage of the Hispanic vote, about the same percentage, slightly higher among unmarried women. I mean, this is a man who was elected fairly and squarely. And by the way, what do these people actually fear? Do they fear that he is going to provide job creation and economic growth for all those folks who are being told by college professors we're going to have safe spaces and we're now going to give college credits if you'll protest the election of Donald Trump? I'll tell you what, 2 weeks ago, what was all the narrative? All the talk on cable TV and elsewhere was what? Will Donald Trump accept the election results? That was a great question to ask about the wrong candidate and the wrong candidate's movements. And it's the people who defied Donald Trump before he was elected who now will not accept the election results. I like the fact that Joe Biden today, the vice president, said that they weren't ready, their government wasn't ready right away, and the Trump-Pence administration can't be formed overnight either. He said he feels, quote, confident in having met with Vice President Pence and his family today. He feels confident that the government is in good hands. So, you know what, folks? You were for Obama and Biden. Listen to Obama and Biden. They're trying to give Trump and Pence a chance.
Look, they need it's not easy to build a government, but you see what's happening. Even Alan Dershowitz went to bat for Steve Bannon, and Joel Pollak and Pam Geller, prominent members of the American Jewish community. saying that this is a smear and a slander against Steve Bannon. You see what's written about Rudy Giuliani, obviously an attempt to prevent Donald Trump from picking Rudy Giuliani. And I'm going to argue that whoever he picks is going to come under a lot of scrutiny and fire that Obama's picks never came under. Are you prepared for what the continuation, basically, of a corrupt media that had colluded, and we learned had colluded with the Clinton campaign during the election cycle? Do you expect that it's going to be different for you guys?
Well, we know it's going to be the same it was pre-election. And I would just tell these people, give this president-elect his opportunity to nominate and to appoint his cabinet, his senior team. And the idea that it's presumptively negative against each of them, the idea that the person is guilty until proven innocent as a senior staffer or a member of the cabinet is really unprecedented, Sean. And I will tell you about a meeting I had today with President-elect Trump and Leonard Leo, the head of the Federalist Society. Senator Sessions was there. We talked about the Supreme Court. We talked about President-elect Trump's list of 21 possible nominees to the United States Supreme Court to fill that vacancy due to the untimely death of conservative jurist and constitutional hero Antonin Scalia. And we talked through the list. We talked about all the vacancies in the federal judiciary below the United States Supreme Court, in the circuit courts, and other legal positions. It was a very productive meeting. And I think if people had witnessed that meeting, they would see that this is a very engaged president-elect who's going to make good on his campaign promises and do what's right by the country. But, you know, we're treating these adolescents and these millennials like precious snowflakes. I'm just amazed how many texts and emails I'm receiving as one person of all these professors saying you don't have to take the test, you can get college credit if you protest. What's the worst thing that can happen to these millennials? That Donald Trump will make good on his promise to create 25 million new jobs, that he'll unleash energy investment, that he'll get rid of the Obamacare penalty on day one so that you're not forced to buy government-run health care. I mean, what is the worst thing that can happen to them? That millions of Americans currently in poverty and without health insurance will actually do it? Get it?
Okay. What will Kellyanne's position be in the Trump administration?
Well, President-elect Trump has made very clear that he would like me to continue to serve him the way I have been, in a very unique position for him. And I want to be there for my best and highest use, so that those are conversations that he and I are having. I don't look at myself as a huge priority. I'd rather watch him form his cabinet and take these calls.
I think you're a huge priority. I'd put you right at the top of the list. You were great for Donald Trump.
Well, thank you. I will continue to support him and his presidency, and Vice President Mike Pence, who I've worked with for a dozen years, any way that they feel that I can be most helpful. I
only want one thing from Mr. Trump, and it's not an invitation to a stupid ball. I hate them, or the White House Correspondents' Dinner. I've never gone. Huh? Inauguration
Day is my 50th birthday. You have to come.
Okay. I'll try. I've never been to one. I only want one thing. Just keep your promises. Keep your promises, and don't listen to these idiots in Washington. That's my advice.
Sean, he's already doing it. He's already draining the swamp. And I think that's why you get all of these negative, unattributed quotes in the print press these days, and some people on TV who don't know what they're talking about. I think they're scared to death that this guy is really going to shake up the system, that he means what he says when he says we don't need all these consultants, we don't need all these lobbyists, we don't need all these professional class, what I've always called the, quote, staff infection.
All right, good to see you, and I know you will be a huge asset to his team. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
And coming up, the mainstream corrupt media going after the Trump transition team and his family. So why didn't they give President Obama the same treatment in 2008? We're going to show you that next. Then we'll get reaction from Kimberly Guilfoyle, Eric Bolling, also Judge Jeanine Pirro and Dr. Sebastian Gorka are here to react to Trump's immigration agenda, and Duck Dynasty's Willie Robertson is here in studio, and much more.
I call them the corrupt media. Bad liars, real liars.
Donald Trump does 2 days before the election, slamming the abusively biased mainstream media. Now, that very same media has been predictably negative to President-elect Donald Trump and his family since he won the election. Watch this.
President-elect is in a real Twitter mode once again. This is a reflection again of maybe some type of unrest within the transition, a lack of organization, not really known who is going to be in these main cabinet positions.
The First Amendment's really important, and we need to, while we fight with the Trump people about this, we need to make the public understand we're doing this in the public interest. It's vitally important for the democracy. He should just start playing by the rules.
21 Club is a really expensive New York City restaurant. He said there to someone, and you're assuming that's a place that has, a $30 burger. I'm going to get your taxes down. When people across America hear something like that, it's got to make them scratch their head a little bit.
New scrutiny over this image. Her own company using the new First Family's interview on 60 Minutes to promote her jewelry line, sending this alert to fashion reporters, noting Ivanka was wearing, quote, her favorite bangle from the Metropolis collection on 60 Minutes. The bracelet retails at $10,800.
All right, so the mainstream media press coverage on Donald Trump and his transition team has been overwhelmingly pessimistic. Let's take a look way back to 2008. Let's compare and contrast how President-elect Obama, what treatment he got back in the day.
These kids, these beautiful kids, Sasha, Malia, are going to be the first kids. The first lady is going to be Michelle Obama. It's going to be a spectacularly different environment for every kid who reaches consciousness. And the world will look at us, thank God, with wonder again. My God, how they do it. How do these Americans do it? It's just truly wondrous. Because we all saw something in this candidate.
Rahm Emanuel being named chief of staff. Just looking through, obviously I'm reading up on a lot of his background. A guy that's called Rambo because Rombo rather, because he's apparently a real pit bull politician, but also a ballet dancer. How do those all mix? This guy's an interesting character.
He's a very interesting character, and I think he's the absolute right pick.
He handled the substantive questions well. He handled the personal questions very well. He's having a strong transition by almost every measure. He was pretty strong in his press conference, the other big high-profile thing he's done since the election. This, I thought, was even stronger.
Here with reaction are two of the stars from the 5, Eric Bolling, KG, Kimberly Guilfoyle,